From the makers of Animal House, National Lampoon's Class Reunion. No class has less class than this class. Coming this fall.
Hello, I'm Katie, and welcome back to Retromade, where we dive into the movies and moments that shaped our pop culture past. Today, we're rewinding to 1982, a year packed with iconic hits and trends, but instead of E.T. or Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we're going to look at National Lampoon's experiment that didn't quite land, Class Reunion. Now, today I'm going to go guest-free, solo, so I hope you like it. Now, the reason for that is because this lovely movie, not readily available. And so what I do a lot of times when this happens, which isn't super common, but in the rare instances where it does, I go the extra mile. And I will tell you guys, I went the extra mile for you today, believe it or not. Some of you might be wondering, Katie, how old are you? You use the library? Heck yeah. It has this feature called Prospector, where you can search for the title that you're looking for, and out of branches, might be in another Denver library branch, but more often than not, it's from a participating branch somewhere in the network. One thing that was highlighted by my doing this is that DVDs can be damaged and thus unplayable. There were scene chapters, so I could tell that I had only seen a small portion of it. So for clips to fill in the blanks, even that was hard to come by. So I pieced together as much as I possibly could. From the synopsis online and the YouTube clips. And, you know, I did a little bit of guesswork, but this is maybe going to be a shit show of an episode, but I hope you tune in anyway. And, you know, if you're thinking, well, Katie, I'm not sure why you went to such trouble for this movie that no one knew existed. Well, I can't help it, because I did on this season set out to cover John Hughes, and damn it, I'm going to complete it. And now would be a good time to request a tip. If you appreciate the effort, you can check the show notes for a link to my tip page on Captivate. It's the last link. If you've never done that before, I'd certainly appreciate it. There is a lot of effort that goes into this. I'm also using a different software to record this episode because each piece of software that I use costs a few $100 a year. And so I'm thinking about consolidating, because now the software that I use to edit also offers a way to record video. So I'm testing that out on this episode. So perhaps I can consolidate and get rid of what I had been using to just record. So we shall see. So anyway, hey, this isn't free. It's a hobby podcast. I'd appreciate a tip if you feel so inclined. All right, let's get into it. This is a great time to also tell you that if you have thoughts, requests, anything, email me, RetromadePodcast@gmail.com. Now, one person who did just that, Zoe from Backlook Cinema Podcast, he writes, and this is in reference to the last episode that I'm sure some of you missed as well because it was on Flubber. But you shouldn't. I do highly recommend you listen to it, because even if the movie doesn't trip your trigger, perhaps the episode covering it might. Because sometimes those kind of movies have some interesting discussions. At any rate, Zoe writes, thank you for watching Flubber so that I wouldn't have to. Disney probably saw that movie as a failure, as there are a few things that Disney needs for a movie to do for them to consider it a success. And he's got some bulleted points here, which I very appreciate. 1, it had to have made at least 3 times its budget. 2, it had to drive traffic to the amusement park and nowadays Disney Plus. 3, it had to drive merchandising like toys and clothes. And the last point, he says, it had to drive sequels, prequels, or remakes. This is a big one because, like a car salesman, they're not selling you 1 movie, but 3. Those are my theories. Thanks again for all you do. See you around. Well, thank you, Zoe. I very appreciate your thoughtful insights And like I said, if you want to be like Zoe, send me an email, retromadepodcast@gmail.com. Okay, this is 1982, and there are no other John Hughes movies that we're going to cover in 1982. There were a couple in 83, but we shall do an abbreviated version of the time capsule so that we don't miss some of those fun pop culture memories from 1982. So let's open the time capsule. This movie came out October 82. So yes, we will consider this a spooky season episode for a couple of reasons. We'll get into it. But before we get into the movie, let's talk about some of the movies that were in the theater that did well, unlike Class Reunion, at the box office. Now, since I'm going solo, I am going to still ask these in the form of a question so that you at home can test your knowledge and see if you can guess the movies. The number one movie at the box office for 1982. Here's your clue, guys, at home. This film was so successful that it displaced the original Star Wars as the highest grossing film of all time. Its screenplay was a joint effort between Melissa Matheson and its Oscar-winning director, who chose not to use the character's signature flying ship and instead depicted his transportation via a child's basket and a bicycle. I think I just gave it away. What was this film, you guys? Yes, of course, it was E.T., the extraterrestrial. Okay, number two. This might be a little tougher. This 1982 comedy drama features a character played by Dustin Hoffman who takes on a new identity, including a specific hairstyle, after finding inspiration from a real-life Broadway producer he'd worked with previously. What film is this? Yeah, I guess I'm kind of surprised this was the number two film. But it is Tootsie, you guys. Tootsie, number two film, 1982, man. All right, number three. In this drama, a key sequence involves a character played by Richard Gere, probably giving it away, enduring punishing physical training at the mercy of a sergeant portrayed by Louis Gossett Jr. Gossett Jr. famously stayed in his role's persona Offset, and in one scene actually injured Gere while berating him. I didn't know that. But what was this film, you guys? Yep, An Officer and a Gentleman. Number four, I'm going to be really disappointed if you guys don't get this immediately, because there's no way to give a clue for this movie without giving it away, I think. This boxing sequel introduced a new theme song, Eye of the Tiger, by the band Survivor after the original theme was unavailable. P.S. bonus points if you know what the original song they wanted was. The film also features the professional wrestling debut of Hulk Hogan in a match with the title character. What was this movie? There's also another, I think, introducing. Of course, it's Rocky III. And who was the other character that I'm referring to? Obviously, Mr. T. And who was the original song that they wanted as the theme, other than Eye of the Tiger? I'm so glad that it's Eye of the Tiger. But Rocky nerds know this, but if you're not a Rocky nerd, it's Queen's Another One Bites the Dust. Number five, this comedy's infamous shower scene takes place at the fictional Angel Beach High School in Florida. This film was actually produced in Canada. Well, I didn't know that. And the school scenes were shot at a real high school that had been temporarily closed. What is this film? I didn't realize this was such a popular movie in the theaters. The answer is Porky's. I sort of thought it was just like a video rental that, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, there we go. All right, I'm cherry picking our categories because this is an abbreviated version since I don't have a guest to spin the wheel with. And I'm just asking you guys some questions. Here we go. No, I was going to do TV, but we did a lot of the TV last season. And to be honest with you, they're not as fun. The early 80s are just all soaps, and I didn't really care that much about them. so I'm skipping those. And yeah, I think let's just skip down to do the Boombox Bangers, maybe. Here are your trivia questions for the top 5 Billboard songs of 1982. Let's see. They're all super easy, one of which is a total giveaway. Okay. What pop rock single, which was the highest ranking song of 1982, had its first 10 weeks at number 1 split between 81 and 82? Hopefully that's a good clue for you. Olivia Newton-John's Physical. It is a really great song. But yeah, so it was super popular in 81 and then continued its popularity so much so in 82 that it was the number one song for that year, even though it came out in 81. Okay, number 2. What song, which reached number 1 for 7 weeks in 1982, was originally released by the Arrows in 1975 and written by Alan Merrill and Jake Hooker? I don't know who they are, nor have I heard of the Arrows. If you do, bonus points. But what was this song? It is I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Okay, number 3. This song from 1982 uses a black and white piano keys as a metaphor for racial harmony and unity, with the message that different people can live together in perfect harmony. It was a collaboration. Who were the collaborators and what was the song? Ebony and Ivory by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. Number 4, this song was famously featured as the theme for one of our top movies. The band was inspired to write it after being asked to compose it by the director of that movie himself, who was a fan of their previous single, Poor Man's Son. Okay, I tried to make it a little harder than it originally was. What was this song? It is Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. Yes. Hopefully you got that because I gave away one of the movies. This is the last one. What was the title of the number 1 single from Jay Giles' band in 1982, which featured a music video centered around a high school newspaper and its editor's crush on a past model? I actually don't think I've seen this video. But yeah, I think the only song I know by Jay Giles' band is this one, Centerfold. Okay, you guys, that was 1982. Our little abbreviated time capsule with movies and music. But now it is time to get into National Lampoon's Class Reunion. Okay, so did anybody know about this movie? Has anyone seen it? You have to let me know. Now, the title, I think, is a little misleading, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. But yes, it is actually very, very much in theme with spooky season because it's a parody, slapstick comedy, and horror. As the, actually, I will read you from the actual DVD cover, some stuff. It says, written by the creator of Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club. That ought to get you, eh? Let's see. It says, Screen International apparently said that it is splendid outrageousness, packed with sight gags and good one-liners. Interesting, eh? All right, it says, this is what it's about. From National Lampoon screenwriter John Hughes and writer Michael Miller of Silent Rage, which we'll talk about, comes this very funny teen horror parody set in the hallowed halls of a boarded-up high school. It's not boarded up, so I don't know why it says that, but it's the Lizzie Borden High School. I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. This movie, there's bait and switch all over the place with this, but it goes on to say then, featuring Oscar nominee Michael Lerner, and he was Oscar nominated for his supporting role in Barton Fink. Okay, Class Reunion will make you scream and shake with laughter. It's been 10 years since Lizzie Borden High School's class of 72 graduated, and everyone, the preppies, the hippies, and the in-crowd, has returned to reminisce over good times past. But classmate Walter Baylor has returned too, with a vengeance. While the rest of the gang is misbehaving at their alma mater, Walter, who was a misunderstood freak then and a certified psychopath now, is still not over a prank played on him a decade ago and out to wreak havoc of a different sort. Okay, so that's actually what happened. So that's what it's about. And based on the name of this, you would not know that that's what it's about. I sort of thought we were going to be in for, like an Animal House style like class reunion. Like we get some of your typical high school stereotypes and what usually goes on at class reunions, and there's a lot of fun to be had with that. But they used that and also combined it with satirical play on horror movies of the time. So it is rated R, and it did come out just before Halloween in 1982, October 29th to be exact. It's pretty short. It's only an hour and 24 minutes, which is wild considering that there were several scene stretching tactics going on in this movie. Okay, if you're wondering, geez, Katie, I've never heard of this. Is it good? Well, it is a 4.6 on IMDb. And let's talk about that. So National Lampoon's Class Reunion was the second big screen movie that was released from the original National Lampoon company. The movie did have a huge buildup because of Animal House, I believe, and viewers expected it to be another hit. Yeah, as a follow-up to Animal House, their first big screen release in 1978, which, for comparison, has a 7.4 on IMDb. That is shocking to me, and I don't think I've seen Animal House. It's possible I've seen clips, but for whatever reason, I don't know, it was that time. It missed me and I never came back to it. And I don't think it sounds that great, but it does have a 7.4. So stay tuned. We shall see. Maybe I'll give it a watch at some point. Also, what's interesting is that this is the third film actually from the magazine. It was the second film released because there was another movie that should have come out before it, but was delayed. And that is also a movie I'd never heard of. National Lampoon Goes to the Movies. It was filmed in 81, so before this one, but it was delayed and not actually widely released. I think it had like a really small release at some point in 82, but not widely released until 1983. So, interesting, sort of, I guess. Now, Michael Miller is our director here. I am not familiar, and you might not be either. He did direct Jackson County Jail in 1976 and a number of made-for-TV movies. Apparently, we are supposed to know him from Silent Rage. That maybe is like his most known movie, and I've not seen that. So, sorry. John Hughes. The whole season we're doing on Retromade on John Hughes. He is the writer here. This is the first produced cinema movie screenplay solely written by John Hughes. He admitted to not being particularly proud of the script. Gee, I wonder. So he claims that he was actually fired from this movie. His quote is, "They didn't even want me around, and I was shocked when I saw the movie," he said. "My screenplay had been completely butchered, and my name will nevertheless be on the credits forever." Now, I feel like he's said this a number of times, so whether purposely or not purposely, as we've gotten to in some of his later work, I think he had just given up and pulled some of his tropes into a hat and pulled them out, and bing, bang, boom, here's a script, a la Flubber. But this movie, maybe he was still kind of, not still, he was actually trying to make a name for himself at this time. It was early on in his career, but I guess I would be very curious to see what his original script was and how it differs from what we got, because it's hard to even describe this movie. It's different than what you think it's going to be. There's certain parts of it that are fun. There's certain parts of it that are like, what on earth is happening? And none of it makes any sense. But there's little things here and there that are kind of smart. But yeah, I mean, like, for example, this is the graduating class of the Lizzie Borden High School. It says on the invitation, the opening credits is actually kind of unique, or at least it's kind of a unique way of introducing us to the characters by showing us their yearbook pictures and like who they were in high school, what clubs they were in. This person was voted to be most likely XYZ, that kind of a thing. So that was a nice way of introducing us to who these people were in the opening credits. And I think then after that, then there's a little scene from 10 years ago. And then we show like the invitation in script writing with the picture of the high school. And I think there was something like their their motto or something at this high school is like a cut above the rest. So little touches like that. And so I'm open-minded watching this. I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. I mean, this is not, I'll be honest, this is not usually my genre, but I can have fun. I can have fun with slapstick, and I like a parody. I don't love horror. There are exceptions of those, but I'm like, oh, score, like a parody of horror movies. I'm in for this. But we'll get to it in a little bit. But so yeah, let's now, before we get into the meat of the movie, let's introduce you guys to who some of our players are. Some of them you'll be familiar with and some not. Again, this is a movie from 82. I mean, like, I'm a year old at this point, so I don't know very many of these people, but I did look them up and I'm like, okay, they're so-and-so from such and such. Our top billed actor here, I do know because he was in a movie we covered last season. Garrett Graham plays Bob Spinnaker, and he is your typical, like, he was the class president. He's your typical popular high school guy, and now he's a snooty yacht salesman. And we talked about him last season because he played Jeff in Used Cars with Kurt Russell from 1980. So yeah, I mean, the early 80s seem very 70s-esque to me. I've talked about this on the show a lot too, where the 80s are, I wonder if all decades are this way, because I feel like the 90s were similar. Early 90s, very different from the late 90s, but I feel like the 80s had three distinct periods: the early 80s, the mid 80s, and late 80s. Anyway, this is the early 80s, which reeked of late 70s still. So anyway, Garrett Graham. So I'm like, all right, score. And then Michael Lerner, he plays Dr. Robert Young. So he is the doctor of this insane asylum. The killer, spoiler, there's a killer on the loose. The killer breaks out of this asylum. And Dr. Robert Young is from there. He's played by Michael Lerner. And some of you might be familiar with the name. If not, he's very familiar looking. And like I mentioned, he actually won an Oscar for his role in Barton Fink, and that was in 91. He also played a gangster in Harlem Nights, an 89 movie, and then also a movie that you'll all probably be rewatching in the upcoming holiday season is Elf, and he played Buddy's boss in Elf. So that's Michael Lerner. He's in this. Then we have our in the yearbook is listed as the class 0. No one remembers him, and that's kind of the gag, of the movie. Literally, he was a nobody in high school, and no one remembers him now. His character's name is Gary Nash, really generic dude's name. Well, he's played by Fred McCarran, and just like his character, he is your typical everyman character, just your like very average. I mean, he's like kind of all right looking. Typical white, normal looking, everyday guy, right? And that's who he plays. Like, he's known for those types of roles because he looks like that. Well, I did not know that there was a TV movie version of Used Cars that came out 4 years later in 1984. And this Fred McCarran played Rudy Russo in that. I don't know why we needed another version of it, but apparently we got one. And then this Fred, he had a lot of other episodic TV work, including a number of episodes on Hill Street Blues, Gimme a Break, Too Close for Comfort, and The Golden Girls. Miriam Flynn is another character that must be, it's interesting because Hughes has his people, and this is very early on with Hughes, but Miriam Flynn plays Bunny, the class T's, and she's like kind of in charge of the reunion. And I think it's particularly her hairstyle. She fucking looks 50, but these people are 28. Okay. It's 10. I mean, they're supposed to be playing 28-year-olds, which is wild. But they all look 45, but Bunny especially looked 50 because she has that old lady hairstyle and her dress. Like, she's just very, I don't know, prim and proper. And she's in PR. So she's just like a phony type, the type, everyone. So that's Bunny, played by Miriam Flynn. We talked about her actually in 2 episodes from 1983 because she played Cousin Catherine in Vacation, also National Lampoons. And then she also played Annette in Mr. Mom. And Annette, I think, was the one who was like really, really angling after Michael Keaton's character. Those were both from 1983. She also has a lot of voice work. She voiced Ma in Babe, for example. We have like your kind of slovenly, like shisty guy that wears a lot of chains, overweight. Everybody thinks he's gross. Hubert Downs is this character's name. He's played by Stephen First, and he was also in Animal House playing Flounder. So there you go. There's a blind girl, and this is played for gags because she has a seeing eye dog that doesn't behave. And so the obvious, very cheap humor, but being blind is played for gags here. The character's name is Iris Ogden. She's played by Maria Small, which I guess she goes by Muse Small now, but in 1982 her name was Maria. She is known probably most for her character Candy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then our pretty glamorous, the popular girl who was used in the prank that was played on the killer. And we'll talk about that. But Meredith is the character's name. She's the pretty popular girl. And she comes to the reunion in an evening gown, but a sexy one. And I think she's supposed to be quasi-famous. I can't remember where they say I just came from blah, blah, blah. She probably does local commercials or something dumb like that. But yeah, so she's the pretty attractive one, played by Shelley Smith. She kind of looked familiar to me, but maybe you guys know her, but nothing popped out at me that she was super well known for anything specific. But most of her work was episodic TV. And she even had several recurring roles on shows, like several episodes on a TV show, but they were TV shows I'd never heard of. So maybe that's just me. And then we have Dolores Salk, which was an interesting character because she was the quote unquote cripple, but she's not crippled anymore at the reunion because she says she sold her soul to the devil and now she's kind of possessed. She has fire breathing abilities. She's able to just like conjure fire at will, and she's able to put spells on people, mainly Bunny. But she is played by Zane Busby. That is a super fucking fun name. She does have some other acting credits, but she's really more a director, including several episodes of My Two Dads, Charles in Charge, Blossom, and Sister Sister. So now you know who Zane Busby is. Now, one of the most famous people is funny, but like us 80s kids know Anne Ramsey, the actress's name. Anne Ramsey was in this, and she's Mama Fratelli from Goonies and also Mama Lift from Throw Mama from the Train. Those are probably her most famous roles. You guys know who she is. Like, she's very specific looking. Well, apparently for this class reunion, they brought the cafeteria ladies back to serve cafeteria food at the reunion. I don't know why, but she plays one of the cafeteria ladies, Mrs. Tabazuski. And that's played for laughs too, because it's super gross cafeteria food, her cigarettes in everybody's food. Now, Walter is the character who is our killer. He's our escaped psychopath from the mental institution. Walter is played by Blackie Dammit. Do you guys know who Blackie Dammit is? Or Dammit? Maybe it's not Dammit. Maybe it's Dammit. Well, and you can tell, once I learned this fact, you can totally tell by the way he looks. He is Anthony Kiedis' dad from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Blackie Dammit. Look it up. Dammit. D-A-M-M-E-T-T. Interesting, eh? And then there are two characters that are a duo of stoners who have not changed at all. It's Chip Hendricks and Carl Clapton. Those are the characters' names. And they're played by Barry Diamond and Art Evans. So gags ensue with a couple of stoners throughout the movie. And then we have a character named Mary Beth, who's also part of the committee for the reunion. Her and Bunny kind of put the reunion on. And she is played by Marla Pennington. She did look familiar to me, but I couldn't place her until I looked her up. Well, she played the mom on the TV show Small Wonder with the little robot girl. Yeah. Also, if you guys watched the TV series Soap, I did not, but she played Leslie Walker in that, so maybe you know her. And then another high school alum is Cindy. She's played by, and the only reason I bring her up is because of who played her, Misty Rowe. And apparently that's a big deal. I did not know who she was, but She was known because she was on the variety show Hee Haw. Anybody seen Hee Haw? I have not. And also, this entire time until I looked it up, I've heard of Hee Haw, and I just assumed it was like a scripted Western comedy television show. No, it's a variety show, I guess. Didn't know. Now I do. What are we missing, you guys? We've covered the stereotypes, the dorks, the nobodies, the popular kids, the pretty girls. Who are we missing? Any stereotypical high schooler that should be at this reunion? The exchange student. I don't know why he or she would come to the 10-year reunion, assuming they went back to wherever they came from. The character's name is super fun. Egon von Stoker. And he is the Transylvanian exchange student, because why not? And yeah, he had like Dracula teeth. He was played by Jim Stahl. I don't know who he is. I feel like I forgot to look him up. But anyway, that was just fun. Now, John Hughes actually has an uncredited role here. He plays the girl with the bag on her head. And that's part of the gag from the 10 years ago time that was such a traumatic experience for our killer, Walter, that caused him to go insane and then come back 10 years later to seek revenge on his shitty classmates. We will talk about what that was in a second. But yeah, John Hughes plays that girl with a bag on her head. And then wildly, Chuck Berry performs at this high school reunion. As himself, the real Chuck Berry plays a melody of some of his famous songs. So we are to believe that this high school reunion committee, instead of having a nice catered meal, they thought, hey, let's bring the cafeteria food back and get the cafeteria ladies to serve us. But they were somehow able to get Chuck Berry to perform at a high school reunion. So this is the movie we're in, you guys. So it is a wild ride. We have the music by Peter Bernstein and Mark Goldenberg. I don't know who they are. Clearly, there are no awards for this movie. The budget, while I couldn't find an exact number, it is estimated to be less than 4 million, somewhere between like 2 and 4 million. It made about 10 million, which is actually more than I thought. So it at least doubled its estimated budget. Okay. So that's our cast of characters who was responsible for making this movie. It was advertised as a school-related comedy from the people who brought you National Lampoon's Animal House. There was no mention in the poster or teaser of the horror parody angle, nor in the trailer. No information about the horror parody angle. Just that this movie was often perceived erroneously as being a sequel or sequel of sorts, and totally wasn't. So that's why it was like a bait and switch, like maybe on purpose. I don't know. Executive producer Maddie Simmons described the film as a broad Marx Brothers type parody of the horror genre. Like I mentioned, the trailer has absolutely nothing to do with anything. There aren't even words in it. It's just a visual of a stage with things related to high school being thrown at it. And so you guys, if you're listening to the audio version of this and the first 30 seconds of this episode, you were like, what the hell is going on? That's the trailer, and you should go check out the YouTube version so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, clearly, Class Reunion is known by many as a bad movie. However, it must also be noted that it's also a parody of bad movies. So take that all with a grain of salt. I'm trying to give it as much courtesy as I can. And clearly, this is John Hughes trying to find his footing early on. And one of his first screenwriting credits, key piece of his filmography because of that. But he reportedly dislikes it after the studio clearly made significant changes. As we talked about earlier, he even claims like they fired him from it. I don't know. Maybe he was kind of a difficult, because we learn through doing this that I think he can kind of be difficult. And it's easy to get in a little bit of a feud with him. So if he was that way early on in his career, that's interesting that he was even able to have one. But he did have talent later. The hybrid is unusual. So it combines like lowbrow teen comedy in the vein of Animal House, which is typical. Like that's what we would kind of expect from National Lampoons. They even advertise it bait and switchy style as sort of like a pseudo sequel to it. But then they also combine that with a parody of popular slasher films of this particular era. And the mashup clearly did not work. It was unsuccessful. A lot of critics believed that this was partially why the movie didn't work. They just kind of tried to combine two genres and it didn't work in such a short movie. They were just throwing things in for the sake of throwing things in. And then they found some scenes for filler that we'll talk about in musical numbers that went on for fucking ever. Okay, so this is 1982. So the graduating class of 1972. It is disrupted when an escaped mental patient, a former student, crashes the party seeking revenge. Now, why was he seeking revenge? What was the impetus of that? Well, when we were shown this scene, right after the opening credits, we get a scene like 10 years ago. And we believe it to be a senior party because there's a bonfire. It was a bunch of people drinking. There's a flashback revealing the traumatic senior prank that drove Walter insane. So Bob, the class president, sets Walter up. He's like, hey, Meredith, like the popular girl, you know, she's into you. She's over in so-and-so's car. Like she's super into you. She wants to make out or whatever. And it turns out, like, we don't know what happened. We see her basically jerking him off. Like there's something going on in the car. But the girl, and Bob tells Walter, you know, she's kind of like, she doesn't want people to know it's her or whatever. Like she's kind of nervous. So she has a bag over her head. And then while they're in the car, we see the bag is taken off and they are horrified and we don't see who she is. We just see the two people in the car that were just about to get it on are horrified. And we don't learn the reveal as to who that is until a little bit later. As to why that drove him insane, well, it turns out that was his twin sister. And it's played by him in a dress. So that was the prank. Now, I thought that they knew that and that was part of the prank. But then I saw something later, like a scene, and because I wasn't able to actually watch every scene, I was looking up some synopsises, and I saw something about Bob. Somewhere it said he was also surprised to learn that it was the sister. I don't think he realized. I don't know. I don't really buy that. I'm not certain. So maybe that makes no sense. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense. I feel like the gag would be you're kissing or like getting it on with your twin sister. I mean, and that would be effing traumatic, right? So that was the prank. So now at the reunion, people are starting to get picked off, right? Walter starts picking off his former classmates in a series of really over-the-top deaths. We don't really see the deaths. We just see the aftermath of it, which is fine. Like that's fine. And then so the remaining eccentric alumni are forced to band together to try and stop the killer. Then there's a reveal where the Dr. Robert Young, played by Michael Lerner, is actually a mask. It's wild because like he's clearly like a short, stout man, but then he pulls that mask off and actually it's Walter underneath. So there is no Dr. Lerner. That's how he was able to get in and infiltrate and lock everybody in by pretending he was the doctor there to confiscate this escapee. So yeah, that's that. And then the ending is somehow, I thought I had missed something, but I didn't. Like it ends really with they catch him, put him in a straitjacket, but then they're just all dancing. It's like a line dance, like Soul Train style, like a line dance where they're all just dancing. And that's the end of the movie, like a celebratory end of the movie where he's just there. He's in a straitjacket, but he's dancing with everybody. It is what it is. Like you could take it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is, but there were a lot of missed marks. So I did read that some critics were like, they set up some storylines and then they were just completely dropped. And I kind of have to go with that because I wasn't actually able to see the whole movie. I was only to see bits and pieces after the first third. And then the character arcs, there really aren't any character arcs. Like there's just these characters doing weird things just for the sake of doing weird things. And sometimes movies do that. So like, I don't know, that's fine, I guess. But setting up a storyline and then dropping it, that's lazy. Like, why didn't you close the loop on that? Yeah. So clearly, nobody liked this movie. It has a low IMDb rating. Like, not that low, though. What did I say it was? It's a 4.6. So, like, approximately half. So it could be worse. I feel like there are movies that are lower than that. In fact, now I'm wondering what Flubber, I feel like Flubber's lower than that, as it should be. Jesus. But yeah, so the critics didn't like it either. So this was a flop of a movie, and it was just wild. Like, clearly it was a bait and switch. You can't tell by the trailer, any of the ads for it, even how they set the movie up, the name of it, everything makes you think it's one kind of movie. And then you're like, oh, it's not that kind of movie, but okay, let's see what this is about. You know, okay, it's not what I thought it was going to be, but let's sit through it and see what it's about. It's super fascinating that this is a stepping stone for John Hughes in one of his early works, despite him. I really wish I was able to see what his actual script was. That would be, I really wish maybe we got that, because it doesn't sound like we got that, unless he's kind of copping out because it was, you know how sometimes people do that. They're like, oh, it didn't work out. I'm going to distance myself from it. But let's assume there were at least tenets of his writing in this. So it's very raw and unpolished, which is in stark contrast to The Breakfast Club, which is, I think, kind of a masterpiece of writing for Hughes. Just a few years later, that was 85. That was just a few years later. I still, like, the people don't look 28, like, at all. And I know we talk about this all the time. Why? I know it is the hairstyles to some degree, and maybe the fashion too, but they looked my age or older than me, and they were supposed to be 28. So yeah, a lot of dance and singing numbers that went on far too long and for absolutely no reason in this, just to eat up time. Also, those stoners had a lot of time in this movie for no reason. Like, that's not that funny. I don't know, maybe it was in 82, but just like incoherent stoner tropes. So there's that. Now, let's talk about some of the pros, I guess. There was a transgender classmate. They're like going through, there was a slideshow portion, and they're like, oh, and that's so-and-so who's now a mother of 3 in such and such suburb. And it was like no big deal, which I got to give them credit for that, because it is no big deal. No one told them yet in 1982 that they should be outraged by this. So if you just allow yourself to enjoy this type of movie, you might find some, shall we say, smart even, albeit outrageous components. So even with the script that John Hughes later disowned, National Lampoon's Class Reunion does include some genuinely smart, albeit blink and you'll miss it, details that reflect his satirical roots. You do have to kind of be watching for it. You'll be like, oh, you know, they're very slight, which I quite enjoy. We talked a little bit about it, but including the opening credit sequence that's designed as a yearbook, it is a trove of hidden jokes, introducing our characters not just with their photos, but their nicknames and their absurdly specific club memberships and ironic, most likely to, accolades. For instance, the vapid, snobbish cheerleader, Bunny Packard, is listed as being in the Future Mothers of Children club. I don't know, I found that hilarious. Perfect slice of dark humor that both plays on as well as subverts the typical teen comedy stereotypes. The film's setting at the Lizzie Borden High School, whose motto is a cut above the rest, pitch black bit of foreshadowing, winking wildly at the audience before the slasher parody elements fully kick in. So that's a good point. That can be listed in our pro column. And then another small but sharp detail involves the class nerd Gary Nash, whose inability to be remembered by anyone is a running gag, a nuanced piece of commentary on how high school hierarchies impact long-term memory. Even the stoners were like best friends in high school, but they couldn't remember each other. That was a running gag throughout the movie. So there's some small overlooked quips that can showcase some original talent that I would like to credit to Hughes, like that, those little touches, even in a project that, by all accounts, was mishandled after he finished the screenplay. And there was one question that I had to look up. I was like, did I miss a scene? Because I clearly missed a lot of the movie, but I tried to watch some clips and look into some synopsis of this movie. So Walter as the killer is wearing the dress that we see played as his twin sister in the original prank that's played by him. So I was curious. I'm like, okay, well, what are we supposed to glean from this, right? Maybe this is like symbolic of his revenge. Maybe this is to make us think that there's actually two killers. But I think I was overthinking this, and I think it turns out that it was just supposed to be a visual gag and was not otherwise meaningful. Couple bits of trivia, you guys, for this movie. This is a spoiler, but it's the notable distinction that National Lampoon's Class Reunion has. It's being the first slasher film to offer redemption to its psycho killer at the end. I hadn't really considered that because I'm not a connoisseur of slasher films. But yeah, he's like accepted sort of as part of the class. Just like everybody, also like no one learns their lesson in this movie. There's no, I guess as one critic put, there's no arc to these people, but everybody is who they were in high school, like to a T. So including, there's like, sure, Walter, like, all right, you're a murderer. Like, that's okay. You just murdered like half of our class reunion, but whatever, join in our little dance at the end of this movie. Now, the setting, and we are shown this at the beginning, so the invitation to the class reunion has a drawing of the high school, the Lizzie Borden High. And then that kind of fades into our first scene of like from afar, a shot from afar of an actual building that is supposed to be Lizzie Borden High. And it's at nighttime with clouds. It's ominous. There might even be thunder. And then we get introduced, I should say, to our characters at the reunion. Well, the University of Pasadena's Pasadena College. Oh, that's a mouthful. The University of Pasadena's Pasadena College of Chiropractic. That plays Lizzie Borden High School. So it's a real place. And it looks really scary. Like, I actually really enjoyed that scene because it reminded me of the spooky castle in the beginning of Scooby-Doo. But that's a real place, I guess. Maybe not the outside shots. Maybe they meant the inside shots. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, who has seen this movie? National Lampoon's Class Reunion. You must tell me. You have to write in and let me know your thoughts if you've seen it. There's no more to say. I mean, I could blabber on, but I won't. So that was National Lampoon's Class Reunion. It was definitely a misfire in 1982's cinema. But I will be honest, even with its flaws, it was still 10 times more watchable than Flubber. Revisiting the pop culture around it makes the stumble worth talking about because there were some great movies, great music. Lots of pop culture is the reason that we do this with the time capsule. So I will keep pulling on these threads as we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between from the past. And hey, don't just disappear after the credits. Drop me an email with your thoughts, or even better, leave a review wherever you're listening. It really is the best way to keep the show going and help more retro fans find it. Think of it as your ticket to the next nostalgia trip. And until next time, be kind, rewind.